Hello everyone, again my name is Dwayne Cannon and as Kyle said, I'll be the chairman for this evening. We're lucky today, maybe it's not necessary to repeat, as Kyle just said, we're lucky to have the lovely Laetitia Pierre as the timekeeper. Our three travel-weary but wise judges for taking the time to come all this way from the far-flung reaches of Châtenay-Malabry. Yeah. We also thank the team of UPMC and their coach, Lisa Rangel, for the patience and planning the debate. Thanks to Central for hosting, and well, that brings me to tonight's motion. This House believes that countries get the leaders they deserve. This is an interesting topic, and some people here might already have an opinion on the subject, but the point of tonight's debate is to put aside our foregone conclusions and be open-minded enough to let these teams sway us to their points of view. Participation from the audience is not only welcome, but encouraged and even necessary. During the debate, you can voice your own approval by calling out, "Hear, hear." Hear, hear. Hear, hear. Or your approbation by grumbling, "Shame. Shame." We're counting on you to raise the stakes and to keep these teams on their toes. May I remind you to turn off your cell phones and refrain from talking too loudly during the speaker's presentation. Whispering among yourselves is allowed, but if we can hear the speakers and it's disruptive, those people will be asked to leave the room. To introduce our judges, we have Pauline Matseraka, Victor Penot, Alice Bernard-Guerrard. On this side of the room, we have the proposition, also known as the government, who will be defending the motion. Prime Minister Emmanuel de Merrick de Bellepont. Emeline Linassier. Vladislav Chetirkin, Mehdi Gesem, and Cedric Auchard. And in the opposition, we have the Shadow Prime Minister, Bongani Koubé. Amin Mahmoudi. Beno Moit, Jonathan Desmond, and finally Tatinda Nyazika. Thank you. We'll call the Prime Minister from the government, Emmanuel de Merrick de Bellepont.
Honourable Chairman, thank you for your greetings. Delightful timekeeper, esteemed members of the jury, members of the opposition, fellow members of the proposition, ladies and gentlemen in the audience, good evening. The right to own property, the right to equal justice, freedom of speech, freedom to assemble, the right to an education. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights describes these rights everyone should have. But unfortunately, not everyone in the world have great leaders to ensure these rights to be respected. Why is that? Because the countries have the leaders they deserve. Well, let's have a closer look. What is a country? A country is more than the territory surrounded by arbitrary boundaries. A country is a combination of its history, its culture, its institution, and, above all, It's people.
Hear, hear!
History has taught us that civil rights and great leaders are not the exception, and not the rule. They do not happen by accident. Their arrival is not due to chance. People have to work hard for them. People have to shed blood, sweat and tears to obtain them. People have to die so that the opposition can be here tonight and whine that life is unfair, since they avoid any effort to fight for their rights and leaders.
Hear, hear!
And who are these leaders? Well, a country has many types of leaders. Political leaders, business leaders, charismatic leaders, tall leaders, fat leaders, and even frumpy old lady leaders, such as Angela Merkel. So, what do we mean when we say countries get the leader they deserve? We are not saying countries always get the leaders they want, nor are we saying countries always get the leaders they should have. According to the dictionary, to deserve something means to be worthy of it through one's actions and inactions. To be worthy of it through one's action or inactions. No doubt every country would like to have leaders who want the best for their population. No doubt every country should have leaders that embody its core values, listen to its population, and provide civil rights for all. Where are you, Superman? Where are you, almighty leader? Yes, please.
What did you do to deserve Council along today?
Well, as a citizen, I'm a French citizen, and so I live in democracy, and I'm proud to be in this democracy today.
Hear, hear!
Back on Earth, we know that leaders are human, not superhuman. Even great leaders can make mistakes. Sometimes these leaders have scandal. Would you reject Martin Luther King, even though he has been well documented that he was adulterous and sex maniac? No, we remind him as a great leader for the United States people. Yes, as human, we deserve human leaders. So do not let the opposition sell you a story about an imaginary created creature, a leader, a super leader who does not exist. No, thank you. Thus, this House believes the country gets the leaders they deserve. The United States Attorney General Robert Kennedy once said, "Every community gets the kind of law enforcement it insists on."
Hear, hear!
Which means that with weak institutions, a bad leader can take the lead. And at the extreme, a dictator can rise. So the people has not yet made the necessary actions. A moment, please. So the people has not yet made the necessary actions to get stable, healthy institutions, and therefore the country is to be held accountable for this inaction. The country has the leader it deserves.
Hear, hear!
Yes, please. You want to say something?
So who are you blaming here? The people or the institutions? You can't have both.
Well, we are not blaming the people. We're saying, you see, in every case, it boils down to the will of the people. And tonight, thank you, tonight I have rallied 4 additional great speakers here who will lead us to truth and victory.
Hear, hear! Hear!
Emily, right there, Emily, will prove that cultural leaders such as business leaders, artistic leaders, or religious figures are just as important to a country, and for better or for worse, we get the ones we deserve. Then, some may claim that no one should be unfairly prosecuted by fierce dictatorship. Indeed, but my colleague Bob, right here, will reframe the debate on the motion, proving that dictatorships only come as a result of the country's inaction. Then, Mehdi will demonstrate that a strong educational system fosters great minds who will be unwilling to compromise with poor leaders, of course. At the end, Cedric, our whip, will expose the opposition as lazy opportunists who are denigrating the sacrifices of the past and present leaders who struggle to provide us with the essential human rights we enjoy today in France.
Hear.
Ladies and gentlemen, we, the government, honest, realistic and hard-working people, we believe that countries deserve the leaders they have. Thank you.
Hear.
Honourable Chairman, elegant timekeeper, our esteemed jury, ladies and gentlemen of the House, our opposition, the government, members of the opposition, my colleagues, it's a very good evening to you all. So our dear Prime Minister came to us today and talked about leaders, as if there's a sold on leaders at Carrefour, at Châtelet. Just go and get one free. Where are these leaders coming from? Where are these leaders? They're scattered all over the place. Just go and pick one. Oh wow. Our government today wants to pull the wool over our eyes. They want to make it seem simple. Leaders are there. Go get one if you want one. Revolutions are there. Go do one if you want them.
Shame.
Our government is living in a fantastical world, and for a moment, let me just take it back to the real world. On April 4, 1994, Radio Libre Télévision des Mille Collines began broadcasting a message. It was a simple one. They broadcast it over and over again. It was a state-funded radio broadcast. The message was simple. The graves are not yet full. Go and finish your work. Everyone in Rwanda knew what that message meant. Go and kill Tutsis and kill them all. What followed was one of the worst genocides in modern memory. 1 million people were killed. 20% of the country's population died. 70%, no thank you. 70% of the country's Tutsis died. 1 million people were killed by their leaders for the very simple act of existing. What did they do to deserve that? Tell me, dear Prime Minister. Yes, sir.
The people who got slaughtered, didn't they get slaughtered by other people from the same country?
Yes, sir. On the orders of their leaders. Those leaders, you're saying, they are so free, so available. What did they do to deserve that? You have failed to show that in your analysis. The irony is that a couple of thousand kilometers away, I was going to school. You were probably sipping wine here in France. What did you do to deserve it? What did you do in France to deserve what they did not do to deserve what they got? In fact, right now, the way they frame the debate makes me think of victims of sexual assault. She was wearing it. Why did she go there? Why did she wear that? Why did she do that? Like David Lemon on CNN who said about Bill Cosby's rape accusers. Why didn't you bite off his penis? No, thank you. The blame, according to the government, is always with the victim and never with the abuser. And that's exactly what the government wants you to believe, ladies and gentlemen. They want you to believe, as Joseph de Maistre said so eloquently, the founder of the Democracy at Work thesis, which is their motion, toute nation a le gouvernement qu'elle mérite. Every country has a government it deserves. It sounds so simple, doesn't it? It sounds so elegant, so logical. If you want a good leader, go and get one, vote for one, right? If they aren't good, get them out. Get a revolution, 1699. No, thank you. So, if you fail to unseat the leaders, it's your fault. If you fail to get the leaders, it's your fault. Either way, lose-lose situation. This is our government. And that's not reality. Their motion is not logical. Any way you look at it, the country loses, the people lose. First of all, let's start with the source of this code. No, thank you. Joseph de Maistre, the renowned philosopher diplomat, was a renowned monarchist in the French Revolution. He believed democracy was a heresy and the royal crown was the supreme rule of law. They based their motion on that and they talk about human rights and democracy. No, thank you.
Point of information.
Okay, I'll take it.
Alright. Do you think ultimately the people get the leaders they deserve in France after the revolution?
That's a good one. Ultimately. You're not talking about the future. We can't even predict that yet. We're talking about now. Do people get the leaders they deserve now? You are failing to prove that.
Point of information.
No, thank you. I just had one. Secondly, the entire interpretation is dependent on the one-sided sexual assault notion victim of the country. The country. Let's talk about the leaders. We all know leaders, don't you? You all know your boss, the way he treats you when he's filled up with power. You all know how your brother was when he was put in charge by your parents and they weren't there. You all know the nature of power and how it works, right? Let's talk about those leaders. They don't want to talk about it. They want to talk about the country, the victims.
Hear, hear.
And even if we choose to look at the people themselves, there's something a little obvious they're glossing over. Leaders live in another universe. The way democracy works in the modern world, leadership and their elites live in a closed-off universe. I know they're going to accuse me of speculation, but I invite them, go and read Edward Snowden's leaks and see exactly what goes on behind your backs, what you think you know about the people you think you deserve. Okay, so this is our argument today. We have no real control over the leaders that we get, first of all. And even when we do try to create change, the space to create that change is not always there. And to prove this, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a star team, right? So we have Amin, dragged from the depths of the Jussieu libraries, to come and talk about leaders in the past and how they worked. We imported a German to come and talk about leaders and power in the present. We have Jonathan, our French philosopher, who will talk about the nature of power and its future. And then our chief whip, Tatenda, will whip this opposition back to where they came from with their misguided emotion and misguided notions. Thank you very much.
Honourable and International Chairman, meticulous timekeeper, wise jury whom we so delightfully deserve tonight for our efforts. Attentive audience, deluded members of the opposition and realistic members of the proposition. Good evening to you all. Our shadow Prime Minister just told us that the government where dreams can bring you everywhere you want. This is what we want to tell you. Revolution has brought us here. What you are telling us is that people that are fighting right now in Syria or in Tunisia can't have the government they want because they're going to die. We are not saying it's easy. We're saying that it's worth fighting for, having the leader we want and we want to deserve. Okay, that's being put aside. Before going far in philosophical considerations, I'd like to bring one blatant example that I think the opposition might have overlooked before coming in here tonight. And yet it is so obvious that I want to be sure that it's in everyone's mind. There are hardly any women at the head of any country. This is a fact. No, don't worry, I'm not going to deliver a blimey feminist creed. Don't worry. You've all been deceived about the reason why this is so. People usually tend to tell you that it's because this is a man's world. But no, totally on the contrary. Nearly all countries are so far behind, so dumb, so useless that we, women, think they don't deserve us as leaders. Yes, I think.
Man, speaking of that, it's not true. There are a lot of leaders who are women.
Okay, good. So that's my point. Apart from Germany, which is, let's admit it, is well ahead of us as at the making of beer, and Chile, which is clearly dominating in excellent beef, I can see many other countries which deserve to be ruled by the superior mind of a woman. Now that this has been settled, let's move to my major point. Politics are not the only foundations of a country. In many other domains, we have leaders, national leaders. My dear Prime Minister has said it before, and I say it again, a leader is someone that inspires people. It's not only about politics and institutions, it's also about touching your heart, your spirit and your mind. A leader convinces you to change your life and your environment. 2 seconds. It's someone that can rally people and encourage them to support a cause. Yes?
Okay, Madam, these things that Hitler and Stalin were touching my heart and were inspiring me.
Shame on you, because he touched hearts at the time. He touched hearts at his time.
Here.
Yes, people voted for for him legally. So let's not talk about more about him. Once you know all this about a leader, it's clear that non-political leaders are everywhere, just as important to a country as its elected leaders. The examples, no thanks. The examples are numerous. Their names are ubiquitous, their impact is enormous. Business, arts, religion, sports. So Steve Jobs, Bono, Mother Teresa, Usain Bolt. Their examples inspire us daily. America would not be America if it were not for Hollywood and its celebrities. France would not be France if it were not for its ideas and the literature we had a few centuries ago. Charlie Hebdo would not have been such an international stir if it wasn't for this image.
Here, here.
And why is this? Because those women gave us those ideas, and those ideas became our national creed. This is a legacy we got from random people, not political figures. Random people that came and were listened to and to whom we accorded importance. Ordinary people that thus, standing out among the crowd, became our national leaders.
Here, here.
And that's my point. We listened to them. We decided that they were worthy of our attention, and we gave them credibility. We, the people, no thanks. Why do we give credibility to some people and not to others? No thanks. Tourism, first the character. Charismatic, appealing, mysterious, the person triggers something inside you. Second, the message. These leaders address something that matters to us. They send a message that we are interested in and ready to listen to.
Here.
Once enough people decide that the message has significance, it gains national importance and became our creed. As with political leaders, a country can also have uninteresting cultural leaders. Miley Cyrus, Justin Bieber, Nabila, the examples are numerous. No, it's over. But once again, these are the leaders we deserve.
Here, here.
When we allow a cultural wasteland to fester within our country.
Here, here.
Good or bad, cultural leaders exist because ordinary people choose to support them. The crowd elevates them from obscurity. Some cultural leaders sometimes have their impact a bit too late after the death, when the general public becomes aware of their legacy, such as Van Gogh or Emily Dickinson.
Here, here.
However, it's still because the people is willing to hear their voices that their message manages to travel beyond the grave and gain such importance. Our society could refuse to honour such leaders and allow them to become forgotten, but we haven't. We have chosen to elevate our cultural heroes, such as Jeanne d'Arc, Victor Hugo, Malraux and Descartes. The proof of this point lies in those countries that have passed by some people that could have been their national heroes, their leaders, but they haven't listened to them. So that's what I'm telling you tonight. A leader is a leader, not merely thanks to its attribute and its force, but also because the crowd decided she was worthy of it. So yes, country deserve get the leaders they deserve. Thank you.
Honorable Chairman, the rightful and hopefully single timekeeper, dear members of the jury, our coach, whose beauty knows no match, dear members of the opposition, respectable and forever lost government. Yes, I agree. Shame on a government that hides away from its responsibilities. They tell us that they can't rule with just, then it's our fault. Maybe we're not smart enough, maybe we're not courageous enough, maybe we're not strong enough.
Here.
But no, it's never your fault. And I come here tonight as your humble chauffeur to take you all to a magical journey through time and space, and to prove to you all that it is never your fault, and it's their misguidance. Let's start by talking about, let's start with a small rebuttal, shall we? The Madam Speaker of the government said that businesses they deserve their leaders, but then again, how do countries have a say in what businesses choose as leaders? They said that, and when the first speaker of the opposition, our friend Bongani, said that what did they deserve to have François Hollande, Disha said that we live in a democracy. Yes, that's it. You just have to wake up and you have to go in democracy. So in a way, you deserve it. What did you do to deserve it? Nothing. No, thank you. And finally, they said that the government said that if the institutions are not here, then this is the fault of the people for not providing the proper institutions. And to that, I will answer that in a moment. But just keep it in mind. So let's start by a first point about colonization and conquests. Colonization and conquest had made this motion false. Let me take you to a race. To a race between nations. A colony here, a colony there. One is British, one is French. The Spanish want mucho colonies. And the Portuguese want a piece of the cake. Even the Belgians want in. What do they have in common? What do they want? Territories, of course. Maritime routes, sure. Resources, make it rain. But they don't care about the natives, which they eventually ruled. The government that they have installed in the company represents their needs and their specifications. They do not represent the natives.
Here.
But we don't ask these governments, who are more educated, more advanced, more civilized, to do the right thing. You know, not to invade people. But we put the blame on the natives, as they said. What should we tell them, we ask? Should we say, oh natives, you should have expected that one day you will be invaded. You should have expected the unexpected. Yes. That's exactly how we expect one day to be invaded by, I'll take in a second. That's exactly why we expect that one day we will be invaded by Martians. As you see, we have provided laser missiles to answer that problem. Yes, go ahead, you have the floor.
What is the point in raising an army then?
Here.
Well, the army defends the nation. Not all colonies have armies. And you are talking about a concept that is quite limited to specific empires. We're not talking about something that every nation had. And one last thing, maybe the very nature of dictatorships make this motion false. What is the first thing that a dictator does when he wakes up in the morning? He says, what should I do to keep power? And to that goal, he will kill, he will destroy, he will corrupt, and he will censor. Where is the space? Where is the space on which the people can fight that dictator? There is no space. And yet, they ask us to somehow invent that space. If dictatorships allow for that space, then yes, sure, it's just the people's fault. But that's not how dictatorships work. And you might say that, oh well, they didn't allow those dictators to rule in the first place, and the answer to that question lies in the past. You see, our dear Speaker Bongani, no thank you, our dear Speaker Bongani talked about Rwanda. Let me remind you, who installed the government in Rwanda? The Rwandians? No, it was the Belgians. So not all of the governments, so how come the Rwandans deserve the government which was installed by someone else? And sometimes, when the colonizers leave, they leave a void in which the dictators jump in. 85 coup d'etat in Africa in the last 40 years. Where is the space for the people to exercise their choice? Where is it?
Here.
And one last thing, they have defined countries as a place in which is culturally and scientifically, or which is homogeneous. But even on that point, they are wrong, because divided countries had made this motion false. No, let's go. Thank you. No, but now that's a very interesting point, because we tend to think that this is maybe the reason why countries fail is cultural or religious or social. But let me take you to Korea. It is the same exact population, same culture, same religion, same way of thinking. And yet, because of foreign powers, because of civil war, because of an arbitrary line somewhere, now we have two different South Koreas. We have two different Koreas, one South, one North. Can you honestly say that the North Koreans do not deserve a better leader? And maybe one last point. That they said that once a revolution works, a good leader has to present himself. But the question is, how come he has to present himself? That doesn't happen necessarily. Sometimes there is no leader to lead the revolution. Take the French Revolution, for example. Who was the leader after that revolution was successful? In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, if they think that the countries we deserve, then maybe we should wait for 2017 and see if we, at the elections of 2017, and see if we deserve our leaders. Thank you very much.
Honorable Chairman, righteous members of the jury, most charming bell girl, blind ostriches of the opposition, proactive friends of the government, lovely audience, I wish you all a very pleasant evening. Welcome to the 42nd meeting of Dictators Anonymous. My name is Bob, and I'm a dictator.
Hi, Bob.
And it's been 7 days since I last executed one of my dissidents. It warms my heart to see such reactions. Now, before we begin, let me straighten up some facts that I have heard from this side of the room, I think. I have heard many questions, but very few answers.
Here.
The government hides away from its responsibility. Oh, sorry. Yeah, the opposition hides away from its responsibility. Please be acceptant here. Such room for sharing. Now, if people do nothing and blame everything on the government, well, the government is a few people, and the people are much more numerous. How can they not change things? Isn't there 1.5 million North Korean people in Kim Jong-un's army?
Point of information?
No, thank you, not right now. Every revolution sheds blood. That's how it works. If there weren't any revolutions, we would still be in caves, hitting people. Not right now, please. Now, you're right. It might not be people's faults, but if they do nothing, it's what they deserve. It is maybe.
Point of information?
Yes, go ahead.
So are you telling us that if you lived in North Korea, you would be ready to get killed for democracy? Are you actually telling us that
Democracy is not a leader. Your ideas may be leaders. I would be ready to sacrifice for ideas and real leaders. Now, let us begin. I remind you that Dictators Anonymous is a fellowship of great leaders, men and women, who have come together to share their experience, strength, and hope with each other. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop prosecuting your slaves. People. Oh, well, think of it. Dictators Anonymous is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution. It neither endorses nor opposes any causes. To ease the most uncomfortable of you, I will begin by sharing my own story. I was born a dictator. My parents were dictators, and so were their parents. My populace was very, very understanding. Every time I strolled down the streets, they were like, "Oh, we love you, Bob. Please, rule us." I never really had any confidence issues. You might understand why. And I could have pretty much anything I wanted. Fancy a dinner with the trendiest movie star? I just had to ask. And yet, by the time I came of age, I was getting pretty bored. I mean, sure, I had money, but even my 15 wives had run out of things to spend it on. I offered them jewels, paintings, spas, painters, friends, children. Trendy bubbles from Europe, like aprons, dishes, washing machines. No, they would have none of it. Life had lost its state. Even my own, no thank you. Even my own people weren't fun. They weren't even putting up a fight. Please let me end this. Sure, on occasion, one of them wouldn't bow to me in the streets, but how long did he last? Yes, would you like to share your experience as a dictator too?
No. I'd like to know why you are telling us this story, which apart from not being true, is not even believable.
We had stories from your side too about traveling in space and time, so... And one day, as a dictator, I heard about civil rights. Now that sounded fun. People that did what they wanted, that was new. Why had I never heard of that before? Now, don't get me wrong, my people had rights. They had the rights of property. They lived in my country. They had the right, they had freedom of speech. I mean, they could sing how much they loved me. I even gave them choice. They could either sing or write a poem. If that is your choice, please. No, please, I'm full of those. They fought for the... I give them jobs, I give them security, they work in my armed forces. That's actually doing both of those things at the same time. They were so happy, they never complained, my country got what they deserved. But back to civil rights. How could I have known that they are so dangerous? They're like drugs. Once people have tasted them, they just can't let go, they need more. So they fought for the rights, and man, did they fight dirty. Rebellion even sprang amongst my army, and I have to admit that having 90% of the population in my private army suddenly didn't seem like a great idea.
Here, here!
The people fought for the new rights, for a new leader. I fought against them. Propaganda was flying everywhere. But I know this must sound surprising, but if I could do it all over again, I'd rather be a civil rights leader. I mean, they have class. Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, John Humphrey. There are women too, Rosa Parks, Aung San Suu Kyi. They have all done something for the people to follow them, to be proud of them, and people are proud to get the leaders they deserve.
Here, here.
But introducing those damn civil rights has certainly made my country harder to govern.
Here, here.
I guess what I'm saying is that a country, a people, they ultimately choose the one who will lead them. Today, everything in my country has changed. And even though the people are a bit less polite to me, they still haven't disposed of me. Sure, part of my country broke off, made a new republic, changed my, revised my books, and are pretending to be happy about it. But any way you look at it, one thing didn't change, and it has remained true throughout history. For better or for worse, countries get the leaders they deserve. On the way out, please consider leaving a vote for my government. Thank you for letting me share.
Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, dear chairman, beautiful girl, and the members of the judge, and fellow members of the opposition, and members of the government. I just want to remind you of the sentence of the Prime Minister. He said that he would be a realistic leader. I don't think that he's a realistic leader, he's cynical. He's just cynical. And it was proved by the third dictator Bob. What was it else than cynical stuff? And just to remind the second speaker of Hitler. She said that Hitler, our charismatic boy who was elected by the German people, maybe. Well, I'm German, so I'm quite good in German history because we learned a lot about it. And so I can tell you, the German people, they voted once for Hitler, and the next election they downvoted him. But he already used the power, he already gained. So the German people couldn't do anything against him. He couldn't do anything against the Wehrmacht, the SS, and the Gestapo. You really want to say that the German people deserved Hitler, that they deserved this dictator? Well, that's our government, they are cynical.
What's the information?
Sorry. But now, as my former speaker from the opposition has proved that countries does not deserve their leaders in the past, I will prove you that it's not even possible today in our democratic or not democratic world. And I want to prove that with three simple points. The first point is about corruption. You see here our leaders of the government. They were elected, and now everyone hopes that they are working for the welfare of our country, that are passing laws for our well-being. So, but how do we know that they don't have some offshore accounts in Switzerland, or in Singapore, or in Panama? And before the last law against environmental pollution, didn't they have a little talk with one of the members of the industry, for example with British Petroleum, with Exxon, or with Shell? And didn't they talk about their bank accounts and how much money they need for the new apartment next to the Louvre? Or what about bribe payments of German arms industry in Greece? What about some really nice, good tasting Scottish whiskey that Volkswagen and Mercedes gave to members of the Chinese government? And maybe a Louis Vuitton bag for the wife as well? And what about the paper scandal in Brazil? I would like to ask you all, my dear hard-working, hard-studying people, fellow citizens, do you deserve leaders that are puppets of international enterprises, who are aiming to fulfill the financial dreams of their chairman. The government doesn't want you to believe that. They want to lull you in sleep and keep the advantages they have. You don't deserve that. You do not deserve that. Yes.
To deserve is to get something through actions or inactions. Therefore, if you do nothing, well then don't you deserve what you get?
Would you say that the Russian people during Stalin didn't do nothing? The Russian people didn't do nothing under Hitler? They were Whoa. So, I think, Molly, well, French people and German history, it's a bit difficult. But now, come to the second point. And now, assume we are not in peaceful times, we are not in democratic, with only a bit corruption. Let's talk about countries in a war. Do you believe that the French people during World War II deserved their leader at this time? Do you really think that Paris deserves the reign of Hitler? Does the people from Iraq deserve George W. Bush and now the extremists of the Islamic State? Our government here is arguing like that. If you, as people from your country, are too weak to fight against a foreign leader, you deserve to be ruled by him. The Soviet people deserved that Hitler killed 6 million Jews and 20 million Germans of the Soviet Union during his reign in the Soviet Union. The people in Moscow and Baghdad deserve that extremists are burning people and, and cutting off heads of defensive men. Well, yes.
Did actually Germany win the war?
No, of course not.
Right.
Well, okay. Well, I don't want to believe that. I don't think that countries deserve their leaders. But now come to the third point, and going back to peaceful times in a democracy country. Imagine you're going to vote. You're going into the voting cabin and you can see the names of the nominees. And you don't want any one of them to get the power. I will explain to you some simple example. Remember when you're a child, I think even our governments can remember that. And you ask your parents, or your parents ask you what you want to have for dinner. And they said, dear son, do you want carrots or broccoli? I want lasagna and pizza. Well, you don't get lasagna and pizza, you get carrots or broccoli. And did you deserve that? Did you have a real choice? The people nowadays can vote for nominators that are nominated by the people in power, that are already in power. It's an illusion that you have a free choice. An extreme example of that is one of the oldest democracies in the United States. Only 2 parties are ruling the country, the parties, and say, if you have new ideas, if you want to be out of these parties, you don't get support of the mass media, you don't get articles in newspapers, you don't get anything like that, you don't get money from rich people. It's just saying, yeah. So in conclusion, dear citizens, I just want to end with a bit pessimistic but realistic saying, if voting really made a difference, they would make it illegal. Thank you very much.
Honourable Chairman, exceptional members of the jury, delightful timekeeper, patriotic members of the government, destructive members of the shadow government, members of the House, I wish you all a good evening. Actually, I feel very, very, very confused tonight because, well, it is intellectually lazy to bring Hitler and the Nazis again and again and again. I feel very confused. Of course, people deserve their leaders. For just one point about that. Have you even heard about resistance?
Here, here.
I'm very confused. Germany, and you said that, didn't win the war. That would be my only point about it, because I feel very, very confused to talk about that in such a front-educated audience tonight. Well, tonight's debate is intimately linked with the history of swimsuits. Once upon a time, there was only one type of swimsuit. I'm sure you've seen vintage photos of where everyone was wearing a swimsuit that looked like Siberian prison underwear. There was no way that this type of swimsuit was comfortable, not to mention so ugly that the tasty cocktail Sex on the Beach would never have been invented if people had continued to wear it. Of course, no thank you. There were many people who were willing to accept the status quo. There always are. Blind acceptance and passivity have led to some of the greatest disasters and cases of repression in history. And maybe nothing has ever been as restrictive or as oppressive as these old-fashioned swimsuits. And yet, because no one was willing to take action, our forefathers, our foremothers, were wearing the swimsuits they deserved. Until one day, like an atom bomb hitting an atoll, boom! Revolution! Just a second. The bikini was born. This new type of swimsuit caught on like wildfire. And the best part of it, nobody was forced to wear it. Women wanted to wear something more comfortable and sexy. And men wanted to watch them wear it. Of course, not everyone was okay with this fashion revolution. Women had to struggle against convention to wear their bikinis on the beach. But the point is, people won in the end. We got the swimsuit we deserved because we rose up in arms against oppressive swimwear. Yes, please, talk about bikinis.
So, what I get from your analogy is, for the thousands of years that women were oppressed, they deserved to be oppressed because they were
Of course they deserve, because they didn't rose up against this conspiration of swimsuits. Listen up. No, thank you. It is called revolution, people. And people make revolution happen. Just a second. Revolutions do not happen without the will of the people. Tell me now.
So you're absolutely sure, absolutely certain that in no part of the world no one rose up against the swimsuit? Absolutely sure.
Yes, I do. Because now we finally have bikinis, and this is thanks to people who rose up. One moment of history. The rest is history. And today we can thank, just like you can do, these brave revolutionaries for the evolution of swimwear, which has gone so far as the monokini, and even today, and trust me, at the string bikini. All this to describe to the naysayers of the opposition exactly how politics work. For better or for worse, you get what you deserve. People either accept or fight, no thank you, and fight against the regime that rules them. If a populace wants democracy, then they must struggle with words, with ideas, with strength, with blood to get it. In fact, any sustainable change in a political system must be made from the inside. This is why exterior regime building tactics, such as the case with the United States rebuilding Iraq, have been utter failures. Look at where we are today. And by that, I mean the Fifth Republic. Fifth Republic. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We did not get here by chance. The French people had to fight against recurring monarchies, invasions, and emperors in order to obtain a democracy which provides so much for so many today. And the next time we're griping about some little thing, remember it is not our leaders that are at fault. I have a speech to do, sorry. You might be just grinning because you're French and it is your blood. How many countries offer a minimum salary for so many people? How many countries offer a minimum of 5 weeks of vacation per year? All of these benefits, no thank you, were put into place by our representatives, our leaders. We fought to have the right to elect. From the 1793 revolution to the Revolution of July to the installation of our Fifth Republic, French people have fought to get the leaders they wanted and thus deserved. National interaction of the people can change history. A dynamic, bold, voluntary, patriotic, brilliant, and united people will always be able to go the time to get the leaders they deserve. A population that is oriented toward culture and education will have more chance of selecting great leaders. A political culture is created in large part by how the citizens of that society invest in both education and politics. Give the keys to success to your people and your country will succeed. One reaps what one sows, one gets what one gives. If you are personally invested in your children's education, that generation will most likely avoid electing idiots, raise enough spoiled and uneducated children, and a large part of the population might vote for George Bush. We get get the leaders that we deserve, for the better or for worse. I will conclude by quoting one simple Austrian, German, Swiss, and American guy who loved bikinis too. His name is Albert. He once said, "The world would not be destroyed by those who do evil, but by those who watch them without doing anything." Please vote against the opposition who would simply watch without doing anything. Join us on the path of responsibility and accept the motion. Thank you very much.
Eloquent chairman, accurate timekeeper, wise judges, members of the government, my dear fellow members of the opposition, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I am surprised by what we have heard tonight. I am surprised about someone telling us about swimsuits and bikinis are so great. I don't know if you've been to the beach lately and you've looked at people wearing those bikinis or those new C-strings, but it's not always pretty. It's not always good. They tell us that countries deserve their leaders, deserve their governments, deserve their business, their political, their religious, their artistic leaders. It makes no sense. Earlier, they told us that to deserve means to deserve through your history. I'm actually quite surprised. So no, it's not time. You're telling us that through their history, you're uncomfortable with us talking about Germany, but I don't understand why. Do you think that Germany deserves this great woman? Because apparently Germany is the only country to deserve a woman to lead them. Germany, through its history, deserves to be led by the best people. I'm quite surprised by that. What happened in the 20th century? And France? Oh, in France we deserve our democracy. Great, because we've always acted so bravely, so nicely to other people through our history also. We haven't destroyed hundreds of countries. We haven't killed, exterminated hundreds of population throughout the world. Thank you. I think you need to go back to your books and learn about what happened in Europe and in the world before you talk about history. Actually, yes.
So you admit that people have thought, so they get the leaders they deserve?
No, I don't think I said that. You also probably need to work on your hearing. No, ladies and gentlemen, no. I will not accept that. And you know why they are so uncomfortable about us talking about Germany? Doesn't it remind you of something? This way of seeing societies, some of us deserving things, some of us not deserving things. This Darwinian way of looking at societies. Doesn't it remind you of a certain ideology? They tell us about business leaders. But the world of business is a jungle. No country can choose its business leaders. No one can choose our business leaders. There is no moral in the word deserve. There is the idea of morally deserving. This again makes no sense. They tell us, yes.
Why are you confusing choosing and deserving?
Here! When you deserve something, you said you have to fight for it. When you fight for something, you choose it at the end.
Point of information.
No, thank you. They tell us about arts. Did Germany deserve Fritz Lang? Did they deserve Eisenstein in those other totalitarian countries? Did any country ever behave in such an evil way to deserve Justin Bieber? They tell us about religion. Do you really think we get the religious leaders that we deserve? If you were to walk in Afghanistan and see a young girl being stoned, what would you do? Would you stop that? Would you try to act? Or would you walk there and say, well, you know what, you kind of got the religious leaders you deserve, so some girl you're trying to marry the man you love, I think you actually deserve it, maybe I'm going to throw one as well. This is what they are saying. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. They tell us about the armies of dictators. 9% of the population, seriously, what country still has 9% of its population in its armies? Very, very, very few. Maybe North Korea, but that's it. It's not 90%, it's 1%. In most countries, there is no more conscription. And this is my point, ladies and gentlemen. In the future, in the present already, but in the future, it will get even worse. With technology moving on, with the world becoming more and more specialized, citizens becoming specialized, the armies are becoming overwhelmingly powerful. There is no way to lead a revolution. This theory of democracy at work might still have sounded slightly
sensible in the times of Joseph de Maistre, but nowadays, what sense does it make? Take a field, put the French army on one side, and put the rest of the population together, nothing will happen. I mean, they would get crushed, completely crushed. What can they do?
But information, do you think the army and the population are separated in the country?
Yes, because they are professional armies. They are trained to obey. It's a professional army. Okay, you want to know what happens in countries? Exactly that. When someone can shout, and be heard more than its neighbors, he wins. This is exactly what they are doing. They're just saying shame and shame and shame all over again. So this is what they want. This means that we deserve to listen to whoever shouts the loudest. No. Technology and specialization means that we cannot kick out the leaders we do not want and so get the ones that we deserve. We have had this example in the Arab Spring, for instance. We have seen that in the countries where the army did not help the revolution, it did not work. In Egypt, the army is coming back now. Did they deserve that? They fought and they died for it. No, they didn't. The nature, the very nature, intrinsic nature of power prevents people from getting the leaders they deserve. Ladies and gentlemen, this is important tonight. I beg you, I lay before you the tombs of every brave man and woman who has ever died to fight an unjust regime and unsuccessfully. They have died. Have they died for nothing? Are we going to tell them that they deserve to die this way? Are we going to tell them that they deserve the leaders they had? Are we going to tell the people in France, the resistance? Yes, they are telling us, oh, but eventually they won. Eventually, but... In the meantime, what happens? I beg of you, reject this motion. Leaders do not get the countries they deserve. The countries do not get the leaders they deserve.
Team Chairman, honorable members of the jury, trusted timekeeper, frustrated members of the opposition, righteous members of the government, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I'd like you to picture this situation for a moment. So your child isn't doing great at school, and he comes home complaining about his teacher, about his tests, and how the universe is working against him. Well, there are two possibilities. Either you're a member of the opposition here, and you tell your child, "It's okay, sweetie pie. Your teacher is a meanie. Here, have a lollipop, it'll pass." Or you're anyone else on this reasonable earth, and you tell him, it's about time he stopped making excuses and started to work. It's about time he started to earn his grades, to earn good grades. Because that other kid in his same class, the neighbor's kid, is doing great, and he is in that same class. God, I hate that kid. My point here is that there's a difference between what we deserve and what we would like to have, between what we fight to achieve and what we believe we're entitled to. Apparently, the opposition doesn't believe we're entitled to anything. And it seems the opposition still hasn't understood that fundamental subtlety. Now, struggle, hard work, sacrifice. That makes all the difference between getting what we deserve and getting what we want without effort. But since the opposition here hopes to win without any struggle, without any effort, without hard work, they have tried to delude us with excuses and nonsense. And here goes a sampler. Yes, please.
So you're basically saying that any struggle will eventually succeed. Now, history doesn't show that.
I'm not saying any struggle will eventually succeed, but I'm saying the possibility of succeeding is worth the struggle. And frankly, I'm surprised. I thought you guys would say, we don't deserve the leaders we have, so we have to fight for what we deserve. But no, you're just here telling us there's no hope, and we don't deserve what's happening. What are we supposed to do? We just have to accept that? Ladies and gentlemen, I don't think so. No, thank you. Now, Prime Minister, you gave us the most depressing speech about hope. If we listen to you, then then the status quo is maintained. And, well, we'd still be probably living in the Middle Ages, worshipping some tyrannical monarch. And that goes to you, second speaker. What's your name? And if we're able to have this debate today, if we're able to enjoy this freedom of speech, it's because people stood up, people put their lives on the line. Yes, go ahead.
I just wonder whether the government is living in a realistic world, because we are living in France and Europe and maybe in the United States. We have this freedom of speech. But what about the rest of the world?
I live in the south of Lebanon and I spent 18 years under bombardments every single week. And I still believe in these ideals. So I believe anyone can believe in these ideals. Thank you for your question. Thank you. Now, you seem to me, my dear friend, like the kind of child who ate broccoli and carrots every day. Why didn't you speak up to your mom? You know, that is applicable in politics too, in the democracies we live in today, because you criticize these democracies too. Well, if you are frustrated about the power in place, create your own party. Go around and find people. You can do things in this world. You guys keep telling us that there is no hope. This is your message. No, thank you. Now, if we listen to you, we're forced to live in shackles. And frankly, I'd rather die in fighting for, well, ideals and for the future of my people than living in these shackles.
Hear, hear.
I have to say, there are some things that still bother me about whatever you said. I mean, you talked about dictatorships, and you said countries shouldn't get the leaders, well, shouldn't get such leaders, but, well, take a look at North Korea, for example. You've mentioned them. Since no help is coming from other countries, change has to come from the people of North Korea themselves. It has to come from the inside.
Hear, hear.
The truth, no thank you, is that given the situation, the people of North Korea have to act on their own and are therefore responsible for the leaders they have. Yes, go ahead.
Are you saying the people of North Korea have never acted?
I'm not saying they have never acted, but you have to act in consequence. You have to act hard enough to get
Hear,
what you
hear.
want. Hear, hear. Moreover, history has shown us many similar examples of oppressed countries that overthrew the people in power for better leaders, and that shows us that a country is strong and that is responsible. And for the leaders it has, it gets the leaders it deserves, ladies and gentlemen. And well, I'd like to point out the great hypocrisy here in the opposition's reasoning as a whole. Look at France. We've been talking about France. The country has fought for years to get where it is now. And this shows us that a country has to fight for what it wants, and through these actions, it gets what it deserves.
Hear, hear.
The hypocrisy of the opposition is that they adhere to the reasoning while the end result is positive. But as soon as it's negative, suddenly that logic doesn't appear anymore.
Hear, hear, hear.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, members of the jury, let us show these people that the world isn't all cotton candy and unicorns, and, well, it can be if you fight for it. Now, the motion here we're defending means we live in a world where countries must deal with their domestic problems on their own, and therefore they are uniquely responsible for the leaders they get. And well, in the real world, the country's population has to earn good leaders. It's not easy, and you don't shy away from a fight when you deserve that fight. So you fight to take the power. You deserve the leaders you have if you do not do so, and if you do so, you will get the leaders you deserve. So, ladies and gentlemen, I urge you, make them stop complaining and make them understand that we have to act to get what we deserve. And we have to act because if we don't, we still get what we deserve. Ladies and gentlemen, please vote for the undeniable truth. Countries do get the leaders they deserve. Thank you.
Honorable Chairman, delightful, beautiful, hopefully single, fellow members of the opposition, misguided members of the proposition, which we don't deserve, by the way. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I, as the chief whip of the opposition, is here as the student of this night. I'm here to reveal what the government has been hiding from us. I'm here to review what the government is supposed to be doing for us. The government, as they've been saying, the government is there for the people. The government is supposed to ensure the endeavors of the people. But here they come and they tell us that the people are the ones who are supposed to act. What are you saying? The government has been trying to fool us. this evening by proposing this treacherous and shameful motion. I'm here to tell you that countries don't get leaders they deserve. First of all, I will start by what the Prime Minister has said. The Prime Minister said it is the will of the people to change the government. But I'm here to tell you, you gave an example of North Korea. Do you know how Kim Jong-un became the leader? Maybe you don't know. Let me tell you. No, thank you. He became leader because he was declared supreme leader.
Yeah.
He was, yes.
So, do you expect people to wait and sit for good things to happen to them?
Here, here,
Here!
What I'm saying is not people are supposed to wait and see things happen. What I'm saying is the government is supposed to play its role. It's not only to blame the people. You are the government. You are here. You are the government. You are here to stand for the people. Fellow citizens, don't be fooled by this government. Government has to stand for us. No, thank you. The Prime Minister also went on to say that it is the will of the people to act. But really, let me tell you something. People have no space to act. The government has military. The government has strong armies, and it has strong power in such a manner that, let me give you an example. Where I come from, people are there, and there is a president called Mugabe, and he is a dictator. People have no space to act, because if they get into the way, they'll get beaten up, and the people are afraid. No, thank you. The Deputy Prime Minister also went on to talk about a point that really shocked me. She said that politics is not only the foundation of a country. I'm here to tell you that that is very wrong. Politics is the foundation and the backbone of a country. Politics influences economy. Politics influences religion. If the political leaders were to say we don't want to exercise this particular religion, then that religion won't be. No, thank you. That religion won't be exercised in that country. So politics is the foundation of a country. No, thank you. She also went on to say that she also defined leaders as people who inspire the citizens. Let me just ask you something. Really, did South Africans deserve Nelson Mandela? Did they really choose that Nelson Mandela was going to be their leader? Did they?
Point of information.
No, thank you. As you say, as what I said, South Africans didn't deserve Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela came up from the crowd and they didn't deserve him in any case. He also talked about random people being leaders. I didn't hear you mention any random person in your speech. You just said random, but you didn't state any particular examples exactly. I will go on to the third speaker. The third speaker came here and talks about he is a dictator.
You're here.
Ladies and gentlemen, don't be fooled by this government. He came here and talked about dictators. How do people deserve dictators? He said the government is not to blame because the people are the ones, the government is just a few people and the government is the one that is few and the citizens are the ones which are many. But ladies and gentlemen, the government stands for the people. I'll go on to the fourth speaker. The fourth speaker came here and talks about swimsuits. Seriously, how can a government that's supposed to be standing for people talk about swimsuits? This is a very serious issue. How can you tell us about swimsuits when we are here supposed to stand for the citizens? We also wanted to talk about revolutions. that revolutions do not happen without the action of the people. But why do people do revolution? People do revolutions because they would have gotten a leader they don't deserve. You also talked about democracy. Democracy is a two-way street. They call it, it's a government by the people for the people, which means it's a two-way street. The people vote, the government is supposed to give back to the country, to the citizens, what it would have promised during the campaign. The first speaker also talked about belief in freedom and revolution. We are talking about, sorry, ladies and gentlemen, the government has been putting blinds on you this evening, trying to propose this motion that only benefits them and not the people. What the government has been saying is a belief that is based on fundamental understanding of how a country runs. Ladies and gentlemen, reject this motion. Thank you.
Want to open up the debate to the House?
Yes, yes. Normally we have a House debate where people can say whatever they want about the subject. The other teams can get in the points they couldn't get during the speeches. We can arm wrestle. I always lose, so it'll be these guys. So please, if anybody wants to say anything about
anything. Well, I think for the opposition here, first of all, great debate overall. I just wish you had developed a bit more on corruption and media manipulation, for example, because that's something that's really important. Yeah, that's pretty much it for now. I'll go to
I just want to say swimsuits are very serious.
Why do you hate swimsuits?
Well, actually, they don't represent government. I mean, of course, it was very amusing, but they don't really represent the idea of governments getting a leader that they deserve. And then also, there's the whole question of fashion dictates.
It was like the idea of revolution that I wanted to be.
It's a metaphor.
It was a metaphor, yeah.
But it didn't happen independently of the rest of the fashion revolution, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but then that's the revolution. But the swimsuit industry is very strong.
You see, you can talk about swimsuits all night.
So it is about it. The swimsuit industry is very strong. We have to defend it.
You're gonna dig your heels in the sand and defend that line until you die.
The swimsuit lobby is very strong. So do you believe it?
Believe which?
That countries deserve the leaders they get. I don't.
In the FDA, you have to take the side you're given. And we often don't get to the believe what we say.
Because I think that, we have the
Well, they might be
luxury as
listening. I will
democracy.
tell you after.
They have the luxury in democratic countries to vote. I mean, they don't always work, for example. I know of a lot of elections that have been fixed, for example. Or in the United States, we have something that's heinous called gerrymandering, where they actually redefine the limits of where certain voter types live so that they can change the vote, the outcome of the vote. And in Russia, for example, there are elections that have been called into question. So.
You should have been on there too.
Yeah, they were supposed to talk about that.
I think there was someone up there who had something, yeah.
Okay, so first, thank you for this debate. It was great. And I have a question for your team. So I think you had the worst part of the motion, and I think you did well, considering that it's really a hard thing to defend. But I have a question. What about the delay between a revolution and the time there's an actual democracy and actual rights? Because the people who fought for democracy, especially in France, they never saw any fair regime, and we haven't fought for anything, and we get the democracy. So what would you answer to that?
Do you fight for your children? Do you fight for your grandchildren?
Okay, that's enough.
So we're talking about people, like not only now, but in the future too.
It's a continuous process since humans decided to live in society. I mean, the people change, the leader changes as well, and so at the end, it is just an unstable situation or temporary. And so people are fighting with their leaders for their ideas, discuss, confront their ideas, and so at any time, we've got the country that gets the leaders that deserve.
And there's also the idea that once there's an opposition, there's a revolution, then the people rally behind another leader, which is the leader of the opposition, against the power in place, which, well, you could symbolically not consider their leaders anymore.
What is great about the idea of the country is that it stays even after people, the memory of the country stays even after people have died. So you've got something, a national creed that stays. So even if you won't see the result, you know that the idea will perhaps one day grow and become.
So you think that the leaders can, like I was interested when you mentioned Joan of Arc, because of course she was burned.
She was with French people at the time, and those leaders didn't want her to exist. But as there were other people that believed in her and carried on her story and her beliefs, then she became something, and that's why now we are so proud of Joan of Arc, even if we killed her.
You are a complicated person. Interesting. It was definitely a compliment. She gets it. Exactly. You'll never understand.
That's what we
Yes, actually I had a question. There was a point I raised and I honestly wanted you to answer it because I wanted to know how would you answer it. It's what if a leader does not present himself? Because I think you have this impression that sometimes automatically there will be a leader after the revolution, but even at the French Revolution there was no specific leader. So, what if you get up with a
versions and leaders, so there's no need to pinpoint one specific leader. That's the first thing. Well, in the French Revolution, there were several leaders working at the same time. We could have Danton and Robespierre and Saint-Just, who were friends in the beginning. Then they split because they had different parties. And then Robespierre, who got in power more than the other two, got the other two beheaded. So at every time there are a group of people that could call themselves leaders, and it might split off during the revolution. I mean, it might split off, be joined by other people, but there's always it's like in history. There's amazingly always times when leaders appear like that. It's actually no, not really.
Well, they don't always appear. They appear sometimes.
That's why I say sometimes they appear, and it's like it's as clear as day that they will lead for some time. And sometimes they will get
with the word sometimes. That's where I take issue with, because the word is always, and so automatically assume that. For example, let's take the Israeli Revolution 2011, was it? Okay, so who was the leader after that revolution, after the Mubarak regime? Temporary members.
You don't need to put a single name. Like if you look at Belgium a few years back, they didn't have a single leader who you could put a name for a few months, but there were still institutions working. And that's exactly the case in Egypt. I won't be able to tell you which ones, because I don't really know in detail, but there were institutions that were making things work and that were organizing things. Because there wasn't just this guy that came up as volunteer to organize, well, whatever happened.
I think we can interpret leaders as a catchphrase or as a principle.
Yes, but then again, for example, go back to Egypt. If we can go back to Egypt just a second. Remember that the 30 years Mubarak has been completely corrupting and destroying all of these institutions that we're talking about. So the only working institution was the army, and even the army.
Yes, but the army is part of the people too. I mean, when you have some part of the people that is part of the army, it means that the population has its share in the regime. So
we'll say that to the Syrian people.
The army is part of the regime. The thing that you brought about the army is actually interesting because Snowden was part of the NSA, I believe. So he was in the institution, he was in the government, yet he chose by himself.
That's weak, because you can say if Snowden was one part of the army, you can say there's so many more people in the NSA and they just do nothing.
Question tonight. Belle girl whose singleness has been several times questioned, although I think her husband is in the room, therefore I
strongly ill-advised. I think it's very ill-advised to ask her out to marry a woman, but team members do what they want. My fellow members of the jury, thank you for freezing your asses off with me in that very cold deliberation room. Members of both teams, congratulations on a very lively and very nice debate. Members of the audience, especially one member of the audience who has awoken from his slumber to hear my verdicts, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. This was a motion about things that you deserve, and I may tell you, I may not be the jury you need, but like Batman, I am the jury that you deserve. And with that great power comes the great responsibility of telling you the verdict and the best speaker. But as all good things come to those who wait, we shall give the reasons first and the verdict afterwards. Both teams showed exceptional speakers with exceptional star quality, and the jury would like to point that out. Especially the jury would like to point out that this debate was a very good demonstration that the level of English does not always correlate with the star quality, and that goes for both teams. We also would like to give points of improvement to the teams. We'd like to remind the team that a debate should never come to an aggression, no matter what the topic or the other team is, what the other team is saying. You should never call out a team on a specific part of their speeches, and you should look at the jury even if you really want to kill the other team. Okay? We will also give the reasons for which we chose the best speaker with no gender in the word speaker. The speaker that we chose for an exceptional presentation and a very compelling case, a very convincing case, and the fact that he was a first speaker made it exceptionally difficult. Now to who won. I see nails are being bitten, I see somebody is looking at me all shaky. The team that won mostly on content. The content was not on the same level on both teams, and the content in that winning team was backed up by very good teamwork, which made the arguments clear and very well easy to find for the jury, despite an extremely good rebuttal from the losing team, who made us question at some times the arguments from the winning team, and I shall wait no further in telling you that Supélec wins 3-0. Therefore, name Bourgani the first speaker from the opposition with a unanimous verdict. As I smell food, A, B, live far, and C, have a lot of things to say, and D, la réponse D, I think I will leave the chairman to conclude this debate and wait for the debaters to come see me with food and gifts in exchange for my personal feedback and the feedback from the other two jury members. Ladies and gentlemen and members of the teams, I would like the House to applaud Supélec for its win and I shall now leave the floor to the chairman for his closing remarks on the subject.
Too much more to add. It was a very interesting debate. Congratulations to both teams. Congratulations to Supélec. And there is some food, and as I live far away, I'm hungry. Let's close with that. Thank you.